sometimes people just want to open a book and get the answer, like what is the Jewish position on the environment or on renewable living and sustainable energy systems? Well, what is it that the Jews meant to do? And some people love to just take ideas that are in the Torah and marry them up with their political or scientific or any other narrative that they're looking to adopt. I'd like to approach the overall topic of our conduct within the ecosystem and what attitudes we should be living with in regards to renewable energies and sustainability, not so much by engaging in the conversation around the science and politics of it all, but rather just looking at the Torah's position and guidance for the way we should be living life, and by taking some early stories that we can find in the book of Genesis and the book of Bereshit in the Torah, as well as some of the teachings that come in Leviticus and Vayikra and Devarim and Deuteronomy, we can actually build a pretty clear picture of what it means to live as an ultra-Orthodox, environmentally caring person. So I'm going to share 3 different aspects in this video. I'm going to talk about some of the teachings that we find in the Torah. Then I'm going to look at how those teachings are explored in Kabbalah and Talmud. And then I'd like to answer some pretty regular questions about what difference does it make and where's my faith in God and all that other stuff. Because most of the questions being asked on this subject are coming completely at it from, I can't say anything but the wrong angle. So let me give you some background. It's no coincidence that in Bereshit we have the creation of the world over a 6-day period, and the very last things to be created were human beings. What's also interesting about the order of creation is that we first have a world and plants and then animals and then people. And we know plants require water, they require air, they require sunlight, and all those things existed prior. We know animals require other animals or plants, air and water in order to live. And people require all of that. But plants don't need people, and animals don't need people. So the ecosystem outside of the human is actually complete without us. We add nothing to the ecosystem. Just think about that for a second. We don't add anything. There is no species in the world that will die out because the human doesn't exist. Yet we need everything. So on the one hand, we're like the bottom of the food chain. We're the ultimate scavenger. But on the other hand, there's something quite unique about the human being, and that is consciousness and awareness and the ability to weave stories and develop meaning. And that sets us aside from all other creatures and entities in the world. When Hashem created the human last, the idea was that there was a purpose and that the human would discover that purpose. And so we have been imbued with the ability to be conscious and to be able to discover and to be able to recall and to be able to string ideas together. That's the gift. What we bring to the ecosystem is meaning. When we look at that early passage that Adam and Eve were placed in the garden and Hashem said, work it and guard it. Work it is to interact with it, and to guard it is to be in awe and to respect it. Now, I want to just move forward to some interesting ideas that we find in the book of Leviticus, particularly in regards to not tattooing the body. So there is a commandment not to gash the skin and not to wound the body. And there's a whole subset of teachings that comes out in Talmud and halakha throughout history about not tattooing our body. And it all comes back to the body is not ours. A body is a gift that our soul receives in order to express itself in this world. And there's a whole mystical complexity as to why the soul needs to come into this world, which goes beyond this video. But you'll find other videos like that on the Spiritgrow website or on our YouTube channel. But we're not allowed to tattoo ourselves because it's deemed within the teachings to be disrespectful and harmful to the human body, And we have some pretty clear instructions already in the Torah to respect the human body and to look after and preserve it, almost as if it's on loan to us. It's not really ours. I'm going to come back to that shortly, but I just want to go to the book of Deuteronomy in the Sefer Devarim, where we have Moshe picking up in his final speech before he dies. He runs through a whole lot of topics. It's over a period of weeks. And he says that when going to war and conquering a city, do not uproot the fruit trees. Don't destroy them and eat from them, as in we should eat from them. And from there's a whole learning in the Talmud about not wasting. Bal tashchis is the legal term in Jewish tradition. That we're not allowed to waste. And it's not just fruit trees, we're not allowed to waste anything. That we should live a life where we don't waste. We don't take on a lot and then throw it out. We should take what we need. Now, in the overall thinking, we were placed into this world to live, and there's a purpose. And we need to live from the earth. We need to eat the food that the earth provides. And for the first 1,000 years, up until the story of Noah, we didn't eat meat. In fact, killing an animal was equal to murder, the killing of a human. And then things change. And again, not for this video, but just so you're aware. So we're allowed to eat, and we should eat, provided we're living with purpose and intention. Otherwise, what are we? Just consumers, self-centered, selfish entities that just justify everything for the sake of preservation? No, it's got to be for purpose. That is why we're here. So when we blend all these ideas together, we end up with an interesting lifestyle prescription, which is one in which we're not allowed to waste, another that we have to live with respect and awe of our body and the world that Hashem has created. And the awe is to work the world, to be involved, to farm and do whatever it is that is required to live so that we can discover purpose. However, l'shomra, to guard it, to have awe and respect, to realize this is not my world. This is Hashem's world. This is a divine existence. And that's why, just parenthetically, just in case you want to know my opinion on science, that's why I love science, because science is the discovery of the magic of Hashem's world, to see the incredible wisdom that exists within everything. Coming back to what we're talking about here, this living with a state of awe of the body and the world is to say, this is Hashem's world. How could I waste it? Everything is sacred. Everything has a soul. Everything is holy. Everything is pure. Who am I to just consume ridiculously or to use it selfishly? And by living with awe and living with reverence, we can have technological advancements while at the same time respecting the very world we live in. I want to move over to the laws of trust, bitachon. And it's interesting because we trust that we live in a situation which Hashem has created for us for the purpose of our own advancement and the advancement of the discovery of the soul in everything. And so Hashem gives us everything we require in order to do that, which means as long as we exist and as long as the purpose is there to be discovered, there will always be enough resource in order to allow us to live. And not just to live, but to live comfortably. The idea of the resources of the world being scarce is a bit of it's a bit of a complex idea, because we have absolute belief that there is enough resources, and the Torah shares with us that there are enough resources in the world for everyone. If we allocated the basics of life, food, water, power, we'd actually find that there's abundance, there's plenty for everyone. But as long as we go around destroying 40% of potatoes because they can't be used for chips, or throwing out carrots because they look a bit funny, yeah, we're going to find that there's a bit of a food scarcity problem. But there isn't a food scarcity problem. There's a food allocation, distribution, attitude problem. Again, things that people can overcome. The last thing that I want to bring up is a Noahide tradition, and one that exists within the Jewish religion as well, which is the importance of social justice. And social justice has all sorts of, everyone takes that term and defines it how they want. But social justice, as defined in the Torah, is about creating a just society where those that do not have are looked after so that they have. And the definition of having is pretty basic. It's food, clothing, shelter. It doesn't mean everyone has to live wealthily. It doesn't mean we need a communist or socialist state. It just means we need to have a kind society looking after those that don't have. And a taxation system that actually looks after those that don't have, as well as allows for some competition and to acknowledge the human kind, and competition is a part of who we are, and to allow us to flourish. And so we can have disparity. That's okay. That's okay, as long as we don't have poverty. And a socially just society works to make sure that there isn't that poverty, that there isn't that mistreatment of human beings, that people aren't being treated as subhuman, not just from a poverty point of view, but even in context of basic human rights. That's what a socially just society is, as explained by the Nevi'im. You look in the book of Isaiah and things like that, and it's quite clear. So what does this all have to do with environment? Is actually quite simple. It's not about being worried about global warming or climate change or environmental sustainability or the renewable energies, blah, blah, blah. Of course, those are important things that need to be looked at. But if we are living our life as per the Torah's desire of us, of discovering and living with meaning, of using what we need and not more, of not wasting, of looking after those that don't have, and honoring the world that we live in, and recognizing it as Hashem's world, not our world, that this is Hashem's body, not my body, that I'm a soul with purpose, the chances are that many of the environmental disasters being foretold, and a lot of the sustainability issues that are being discussed, and a lot of the climate things that are being fear-mongered into us, that none of these will actually exist if we live with the original purpose. Of course, if we don't, there are going to be natural corrections. Of course, if we are cruel to the ecosystem will be cruel to us. Not because it's conscious and it's going to pick on us, but because if we create imbalance, we will have to live with the result of imbalance. So, you can follow a path of fear and what are we going to do to combat those specifics, but that's actually a path of control. As soon as we get that under control, then we're going to go back to living the way we are. Or we actually develop change in who we are as individuals, which brings us to the final question of, but I can't afford a Tesla. Or as an Australian of a country of, 26 million, what difference does it make what our government and our country does if China, America, Japan, Russia, Germany, Iran, these are just some of the top 7 or top 10 polluters in the world. What difference does it make if they're not doing it? But that comes back to the fundamental of being Jewish. What difference does it make if the whole world's not Jewish? I have a heritage, I have a tradition, I have a Torah, and I have to live by that. And I use that Torah to discover the meaning. The fact that not everyone does it doesn't make a difference to my life. I still have to live with it. So it's not about what's the use if no one else is. Because we're not doing this for environmental reasons. We're doing this because this is the spiritual pathway that we all live. But what about the fact that I can't afford a Tesla? I want to live as the Torah wants. I want to be good to the environment. I want to be good to my body. Well, for that, we have a very straight-up hashkafic philosophical position, and that is that we can only do what we can do. Every single person is able to do what they're able to do. And of course, we need to push ourselves to our max, which is a very Jewish principle, and not further. And to do tomorrow more than we did today, and to do today more than we did yesterday. And so if we take a pragmatic path of being better, of honoring the environment more today than we did yesterday, of doing another mitzvah today more so than we did yesterday, to give a bit more charity today than I did yesterday, and we just live with that overall attitude of doing a bit more today than I did yesterday, we're going to be fine. Each one of us will be fine, and the whole world will be fine. So you don't need to go out and buy a Tesla or put solar panels on your roof or suddenly start changing your water tanks or your dishes. No, because that would cost a fortune. and it'd be unpractical. And there is no place in Judaism that calls for this sort of impractical behavior. And you look at the whole idea when people are on a journey of growth, and you find this throughout the Talmud, when people are on a journey of growth, although there is what we're meant to be and aspire towards, the Talmud and Halakha takes a very pragmatic approach of, but that's what is meant to be done. Where are you at? Where are you at? In what areas are you going to grow? In what areas can you become more spiritually conscious? And that will inform our whole living. So let's move away from what is the Jewish position on environmentalism, and let's go to what is the position of living. And what we'll find is that when we live with this spiritual consciousness and adhere to the teachings of Bal Tashchis, of not wasting, and the other things that I mentioned before, by default, things are going to be so much better.